You sometimes hear that the road to big oil is paved with blood, the blood of pioneers who blazed the trail. Well, it may sound rather pompous, but for me it's not just words. It's about people I worked with, and many of them died in the process of the heroic exploration of the North. But no amount of oil is worth even a broken little finger, let alone a human life, because human life is priceless. A burn is an injury that involves horrible physical suffering and a ruined life. Fire survivors talk reluctantly about their experience. None of them will ever be able to get over it completely. Here's what's left of a welder's protective clothing. This, for example, is his jacket. What you see here is what, in crude terms, is supposed to protect his back. It is all but missing. On the 26th of April 2010, an ignition of an oil-containing liquid occurred at decommissioned oil treatment facility number 1 at Yuzhny CPF during repair work. 3 of 4 workers managed to escape. At the moment of explosion, Anvar Sharipov, electric and gas welder, could only turn away from the blast of a 10-meter flame that engulfed him. Because he was standing on the ladder steps, he did not actually have time to flee the blowout area. His oil-soaked clothes flared up and his hard hat and goggles melted immediately, exposed to temperatures over 1,000 degrees. They saw Sharipov burn when he was already moving away from the blowout area. They managed to get him just in time to douse his clothes in a puddle. And the weather was uncertain. If you are lightly dressed, it may be cool. So I put on 2 more sweaters. Anvar's charred clothes were taken off with his skin. Unfortunately, he had synthetic tights and sweater under his protective clothing, which, when exposed to fire, literally melted into his skin. And these plastic drops, together with my own skin, let's say half is plastic, the other half, my own skin. When Anvar Sharipov was taken to Tyumen, doctors in the admission department did not believe he could survive with such injuries. The patient was transferred from Nyagan on April 29th with very, very severe burns. 50% of his body was burned, including 45% deep burns. That's a lot. Anvar spent 3 months in intensive care ward. Every day he was within an inch of his death, with never-ending excruciating pain. People are usually conscious. They can see, hear, feel, but we can't do anything. Patients are administered the strongest painkillers, but no medication can completely relieve the pain of a burn patient. It's when the state of shock subsides that burn patients have their most horrible experience, the process of tissue necrosis and a painful dead skin removal process. It gets wet when you lie for a long time. You want to turn to your side and it's wet. You need ventilation.
Потом
You
начинаешь
start looking for a hairdryer.
фен искать,
Then you find it and use it, and you can't do without a hairdryer.
а без фена никак.
Anvar had 10 operations, and he does not remember half of them. Body areas not damaged by fire now too have scars. They are a source of donor skin.
Ее берут,
Donor skin is taken and grafted.
дня через
Then
два,
let's say
допустим,
2 days
приклеилось,
later,
всё, прижилось,
only half the skin is taken,
а второй кусочек,
and the other half,
допустим,
3 or 5
сантиметров 35,
centimeters,
не может прижиться.
failed to adhere and is loose,
Жизненно эти
and there is no point
убрано,
in keeping it there.
смазано, и она уже к другой коже не может прилипнуть. Она
They
болтается.
cut it again
Чё её смысл?
and take another patch of
Они
donor
по новой
skin.
вырезают
graft
опять
it.
кожу, и это срезает, и новую прислоняет.
Anvar lost 40 kilograms. He can still hardly move. He has to have a plastic surgery on his mouth, and then rehabilitation, and a year in special compression underwear.
Пока пациенты
While
находятся в
patients
стенах
are in the
нашего
ward,
отделения, то есть они
they are
себя
more or less coping
более-менее
because they are
нормально
among fellow
ощущают,
patients. When they leave our hospital,
потому что они находятся, ну, примерно среди
they look around
таких же
them,
людей.
and they
Когда
see
они выходят
people
уже за
whose
стены нашей
faces
больницы,
are
то есть
not
они видят
disfigured,
вокруг
that is,
людей,
with no
которые
defects.
имеют
Then
необезображенное
they can
лицо, то
sink
есть у них
into a
нет никаких
depression.
дефектов, то есть могут
And anything
различные
can happen in
депрессивные
this state.
состояния и все что угодно быть.
Physical recovery will be excruciatingly long. And if a person survives the first 2 months, there is a good chance he will live. But for many people, it is the psychological ordeal that they can't cope with, their reflection in a mirror. If there is no support from the family, and they can't carve a place for themselves in the community, not being able to work now, weaker people may turn to drinking, and some contemplate suicide.
Может даже кончать жизнь свою.
The chief question for Anvar: who is to blame for his suffering on the hospital bed? Disabled? Crippled?
Но в той ситуации, как
In
бы,
that situation, first of all, pipes should have been blown down,
продуть всё.
and we should have made sure there was no gas left. Take measurements, check gas concentration in the pipe, splice. This should have been before the starting of the work.
Наверное, тут
It
просто
must have been a combination of circumstances, an unfortunate train of events, and any one of these events not occurring could have averted this tragedy. But the chain of events led to this incident.
произошел такой несчастный случай.
There can be no 100% protection against injuries, but more often the tragedy is caused by human factor. Haste, carelessness, inattention, lack of required PPE. A good many people, at least once in their lifetime, have shown negligent safety attitudes, thus pushing their luck. But at a fire hazardous facility, every little detail and every rule costs too high a price. Counting on one's luck is as good as rolling the dice with death.
Есть такая пословица.
There is a saying,
Помни,
remember
тебя
your
ждут дома.
folks expect you back home.
Чтобы
And
дома
for you to
дождались,
get back
надо
home safely,
относиться
you must treat your
к своей-
safety
к своей
and that of
безопасности
others
и
with all
безопасности
due respect.
окружающих людей со всем должным вниманием.
Burns from red-hot pipes, boiling fluids, fire, or chemical substances can be avoided. First of all, the way to do it is by not neglecting PPE and being aware of the responsibility for yourself and your coworkers. It has been 2 years since the Samatlar gas pipeline tragedy occurred, but these young men speak reluctantly of the incident.
Я рад, что я остался
I'm lucky
жив
to
и
be
что
alive,
я могу это
and I
рассказать
can now share my story with others, helping them to avoid such
чтобы они не
situations.
попадали в такие ситуации.
On August 13, 2008, a 4-man repair crew was working at the scene of a gas pipeline leak. Everybody could smell gas and understood that the work was performed in violation of safety rules. But the crew was in a hurry and no one attempted to stop the unsafe work.
Мой напарник
Sergei Merkushev was my workmate. That is to say, he was the one milling the window in the pipeline.
Вырез технологического отверстия.
We were standing next to each other,
То есть
We
мы
were
стояли
assisting
рядом,
him in the dark.
в темное время суток.
But back then, everything happened according to the Russian proverb danger past, God is forgotten. The supervisor, with no work permit or gas concentration measurements, ordered to start milling a window in the gas pipeline. 5 minutes later, the explosion occurred.
Я стоял как
I was
боком,
standing
получается,
with my right side
правым.
to
Сергею.
Sergei. And then there was a blaze,
огонь.
fire. The flame hit me in the face. Well, to put it in a nutshell, I lost everything. My eyesight, I could not see where to go, what I should do. I understood that everything was on fire. There was very little left of the protective clothes. But it was due to these clothes that they didn't burn to death. The average gas combustion temperature is about 1,000 degrees. Clothes practically fell off. As it was later found out, the gas concentration was very high. With that high gas concentration, I simply ignited all the gas when I was running from the scene. I was completely engulfed in flames. In a matter of seconds, it caught up with me. I fell. The ground was swampy. I was wearing boots. I fell, I slipped down, stood up, and ran farther. Of course, all the time in flames. During the first few hours, people do not feel any pain. Burn patients cannot realize the gravity of their misfortune because they are in the state of shock. Pain comes later, with the edema and general intoxication of the body. One young man had 45% of his body burned. As well, his respiratory organs were affected. Another one had burns over 38% of his body and respiratory tract injury. The human palm is 1% of the whole body skin. But what does 40% burn mean? Frank index of 120 means that there is no chance for the victims to survive. What does that mean? Frank index of 120, it roughly equals 40% of full thickness burn. Because Yevgeny was standing to the left of the ignition area, his right arm was so badly damaged that doctors were planning to amputate it. Amputation means disability and loss of earning capacity. At the age of 22, this would be the bane of his life. All this caused endless pain. I was screaming every moment. Every move causes pain. Every breath causes pain. Dressing changes, operations cause pain, which is endless 24 hours a day. It is just impossible to describe feelings which burn patients go through during and after treatment. This is a special group of unfortunate patients. He can't breathe. He can't move. He has to live through pain every second of his life. Sergei Merkushev's face suffered the most damage. It was literally charred. A part of his ear and nose were missing. He underwent more than 10 plastic surgeries. There is, let's call it, some moral discomfort when you are among strangers. Well, it will stay with you for the rest of your life. You can never get rid of it completely. Somebody else's negligence, underestimation of risks, and carelessness. All these factors combine to result in a tragedy that permanently changed the lives of several young people. I could not imagine such severe consequences. I'm still being treated, and it's hard to think that I will never be like I was before, and the health that I lost. When you more or less regain consciousness, you start thinking, who is going to support my family if I am... And you better do something useful with your life. Fire is not forgiving to carelessness both in the workplace and at home. It can not only cause physical sufferings, but ruin the lives of survivors and their families. It is always the worst case you should prepare for. And if a supervisor or manager orders you to do something which you can see is hazardous to you or your coworkers, you should never agree to do it. Just stop the work, because the consequences can be fatal. And you and your coworkers have families. Think about
Подумайте о
them.
них.
Experience of others is invaluable. It gives everybody a chance not to repeat a terrible mistake, a chance to stay alive in unforeseen situation, a chance to save the life of another person without risking your own life.
Для людей
Truly
созданы,
comfortable working conditions have been created for
по-настоящему
workers
такие
across the
комфортные
industry.
условия труда.
That is why we
Те
try
более
incessantly,
Поэтому
every day and every minute,
ежедневно
to
и
get this
ежечасно
message across to
повторяю,
people
что главное
that the most important thing is to be alive
вернуться домой после
and come
рабочей смены.
home after work safe and sound, because your folks
Каждого дома
expect you back.